EAGLES, Eagles.
Welcome in, everybody, to an Overreaction Monday here on Birds 365 after the Philadelphia Eagles get a 28-23 victory over the Jacksonville Jaguars and Doug Peterson second return to Lincoln Financial Field. Johnny Mac, how you doing on this Monday morning? A lot to talk about from yesterday's game, Johnny Mac.
Doug's 0-2. Poor Doug. But he had him in the game at the end with a chance to win it, and that was shocking. We'll say that. They shouldn't have been in the game. But, NFL games, I always talk about have personalities, and that one started to go a little bit hinky with some of the things and some of the decisions, which I know everybody's going to be upset with, and also some plays that players usually make that didn't make. So, perfect storm in Jacksonville. But I got to tell you, looking back and running through some of the plays, Trevor Lawrence was really trying to throw an interception on that last drive, and he finally threw one really poorly placed ball. But I like the idea, but just terrible placement, and the receiver didn't even track it, and Nakobe was there, and give Nakobe credit because he made a heck of a catch for a linebacker, and that's been a problem for him in coverage. So I like the idea from Jacksonville. The execution was awful. And the Eagles get out with a win they should have had, a win that was a little bit more difficult than it should have been in the second half after, it was 22-0, giving up 40 yards or whatever.
Good stuff there, John. We'll get into everything that is being talked about in Eagles ether world with Nick Sirianni, but I do want to stick on the players for a little bit because I think, again, it's another week of them being overshadowed. Like, even on the postgame show, we barely even talked to you about, what the players did on the field. I thought the players had a really nice game. I mean, Jalen Hurts was 18-24 in that game. He was super efficient for his fourth straight week. The total yards, the Eagles had 446 to 215. Saquon Barkley ran for 159. We'll be giving away a Saquon Barkley jersey to the great people of JAKIB Nation. I mean, the two linebackers, both of them came away with an interception. I mean, I don't know. Is it just me, or did the Eagles players have a really nice game yesterday?
Well, a good 40 minutes, and then it wasn't as great down the stretch. But I mean, there were a lot of great individual performances, starting with Saquon and the Jimmy Snuka backward leapfrog, which is the last time I've seen it. But he says he did it in college as well at Iowa when Penn State was playing Iowa. I think he was a sophomore, so he's done it. He's done it before. He had a great game. I liked the way Jalen Hurts was using the dump off game because he never does that, and he was doing it with Saquon and Grant Calcaterra. I thought that was a positive. Devontae was off the charts on the scoring drive. I mean, boy, that guy. And anytime I think I said that on the post game show, to the naked eye, when you're watching some of these toe tap receptions he makes, you say that there's no way he's in, and he's always in. So now I'm at that point where I'm like, oh, looks out, he's in. Trust me, he's in. Nobody does it better than him, and that was an amazing touchdown catch. Preceded by the 46-yard bomb down the field. So second consecutive game they've hit the deep ball. You mentioned the defense. I thought it was another great Zach Bond day. It was funny because Nakobe didn't play that well, and he said that after the game, and he came up with the big play. So that's gonna be a real confidence driver, I think, for him. But he keeps getting better and better in general, just from where he was early in the season. So I think that was a part. The defense was just tremendous, as I said, for the first 40 minutes of that game. And then some of it is just human nature. And you give up a drive, and that would have been fine. But then you get the turnover right after it, and they score immediately. And then you start saying, oh, then the confidence, I think, starts to waver a little bit. and things got a little sticky. You know, Jake Elliott at the end of the game with a 57-yarder. Boy, that's tough. Are you going to trust Jake Elliott? I would, but he hasn't been Jake Elliott this year.
You think there's any merit to them, leaving him on the bench and then he gets kind of, I mean, to use that word, he gets cold. He doesn't kick all game and then he comes out for a 57-yarder. Remember, he didn't really kick many extra points either.
Yeah, I know Jake wouldn't use that as an excuse.
I know he wouldn't. I'm just wondering if that human element plays
it's not
into
like it was a freezing night or anything. I don't think that was an issue, and obviously it was close. But those I think kickers have gotten so good, we just assume, oh, he'll make a 57-yarder. That's back before he kicked 61 in 2017. I guess that was the for the Eagles. I mean, that would have been one of the greatest field goals in Eagles history. So things have changed so dramatically. But he missed it and gave Jacksonville a chance. And then you get a pass interference, and that's the NFL, man. Look, you know me, I don't blame officials, but it's baked in. I always say you're going to have some adversity when it comes to the officials. And I'm that was a pass interference on Avonte Maddox. I have no problem with that. But when you talk about, did Jalen get in on the 2-point conversion? I think he got in.
I'm not going to lie. It didn't look like it from my angle, but I mean, it didn't from my angle. But you could.
All right, I could be wrong because I'm in the press box.
Case either way, though. I mean, he was damn close, but it wasn't a definitive like, oh, that ball's across.
Oh, then that makes me feel better actually, because I but again, I don't have the big screen and all that kind of stuff. It looked like
I was watching
on
the TV exactly
to me. That actually makes me feel better, because they called it on the field, and if there's not, that's what they should do. If there's not definitive evidence, they
can't overturn it. Exactly.
So I don't have a problem with that at all. So that actually makes me feel a little bit better. The Saquon fumble, I do not like the word salad. And I read that on last night on the post game show. I do not like that explanation. I mean, he was down, but he knows he shouldn't make that mistake as well. So it's kind of like, all right, you can't put the officials in that position to be able to make that mistake, I guess is what I'm saying.
Yeah, that's a tough call because you don't even want to beat Saquon up because he was clearly forced by the ground, right? The fumble. It's not like it was punched out or anything like that. The ground caused it, but they said he stumbled, I guess, down. So
yeah, but he knows, like, Saquon, and this speaks to the greatness of Saquon. Like after the game, he did not think he played a good game because he was worried. No, I'm saying he was worried about 4 things: the fumble, the drop pass, the ball start, which I didn't even see, to be honest. I don't know if you saw that.
I did. It didn't. I mean, it wasn't a huge deal.
And late in the game, he had a run and he went down. And he thought he had the first down, but he didn't have the first down because they had been backed up, and he was very upset about that. So he was like he thought he played a bad game, and that, as I said, speaks to the greatness of him, because that's his mentality. Like, to him, he's looking at the 4 mistakes and he says, obviously the other stuff made up for it. But that's the way he approaches the game, and that's why he's the player he is. But so sometimes, but getting back to the fumble, that's can't put him in that position, and he knows he knows. See, I think a lot of people think the ground can't cause a fumble. That's it. End of story. That's not the case. If you're not touched and you hit the ground, it's a fumble.
Now he was touched, but I guess what was the the thinking there that the touch from the defender isn't what caused him to go down. It was more the
Yeah,
stumble from his own player.
well, it was deemed a stumble on the field. This is their explanation. So because it was a stumble, when he went down, he would not be down by contact, and therefore it was a fumble. That's the direct quote from Mark Butterworth, who was the league's vice president of instant replay. So they're ones in New York making the ultimate decision. So that was his explanation. So, he was asked a follow-up question. So what would have qualified as down by contact when number 51 touched him there? And he said, if no other player hit him and they ruled it not a stumble. So yeah, this guy's a moron to begin with.
Yeah,
And he went down after contact by number 51 of the defense with no other contact. And he went immediately down, that he would have been down by contact. It makes no sense whatsoever. Makes no sense whatsoever. But again, and to Saquon's credit, he knows he can't do that because you're leaving it open to interpretation by this over-legislated bullshit league.
Exactly. You should just take it in your own hands and don't fumble the ball. Is how Saquon's thinking.
Exactly.
Yep.
So, and it turned out to be correct thinking because they made a mistake, in my estimation. And they claim it wasn't. Whatever. He probably should have been ruled down from my perspective, but these things happen, man. It's baked into it. That's why I never complain about it. They're going to make mistakes, and they're going to throw flags that affect your team, and you either overcome it or you don't. And ultimately, the Eagles were able to overcome it. So that's something.
No doubt. John, let's get into Nick Sirianni. And Christopher, I will get to all supers, man. I always get to supers. I'm just going to do it at the end of the segment because we post out the segment after. I will get to your super chat in about 8 minutes, right before we get to Jeff Kerr. So just give me 8 minutes, Christopher, and I'll get to all super chats. Thank you for the support, everybody. John, we got to talk about Nick Sirianni. And I'll ask you an overall question just to start before we get into some of the nitty gritty. Overall, any issue from you with the way Nick Sirianni handled the game yesterday, kind of from an overall perspective, as you view that game? Any issue with what Nick Sirianni and how he called yesterday's game?
From an overriding perspective, not really. From a micro perspective, there are a couple decisions I would have gone the other way with, namely the cuteness on the one.
Yeah.
Tush push, I don't like that. I just explained the port. Like I saw one guy, and I'm not gonna point him out because anybody can have their opinion. It's not that big of a deal, but said he made every wrong decision. And you and I were talking, and he brought up the 4th and 3 early in the game. So it's 10-0. They're at the 23, maybe somewhere in that range.
Yeah, 22. Second quarter, up 10, 4th and 3 at the 22 was the call.
Yeah. And again, as I pointed out through the screaming of the postgame show, being aggressive in that type of situation has been the wheelhouse of the Philadelphia Eagles long before, and even before Nick Sirianni and the other guy on the other side yesterday was in charge. Same type of thing. They've had tremendous success being aggressive overall. Doesn't mean they're all going to be successful, but they've had tremendous success. It's been a huge advantage to the team overall. So right there, I have no problem with the decision. And then even if you want to, and what term did you use to me? Outcome bias. I like that term. There's an outcome bias because it failed. So people automatically default to, oh, that's a bad decision. And again, anybody who has NFL Game Pass, when they put it up, you can put up the coach's film. That play was there to be made. A.J. Brown was open, crossing, and Jalen threw it late and enabled, I think it was Darnell Savage, to get back to the play and break it up. That play was there. If the ball's out on time, it's a first down. They convert 4th down. Everybody's happy. They probably go in and score. You never know. Maybe they throw an interception. Maybe they have to settle for a field goal after getting the first down, but they're going to get the first down. So that's where I get like you're basing bad decision on bad outcome, and that play was there to be made, and you would have been thrilled if people are being honest with themselves. There's not money.
There's no doubt. I mean, John, in the moment, I tweeted, and I'm reading right from my Twitter. Go give me a follow, everybody, at Real Zander, and follow John at JF McMullen. I tweeted in the moment. I have no issue with the Eagles going for it there, trying to put them on their heels. Great play by Savage to break up the pass to A.J. Brown. Now, I didn't see in time the replay. It was kind of a bad throw from Jalen, but you're right. I don't have an issue with the decision there, but some of the other ones, I do have an issue with the decision-making process, and I think that's where me and you might disagree on some of these. I mean, I think you're towing the line of just being aggressive to be aggressive when it's right there in front of you. I mean, the one that really sticks out to me is the one at the end of the half where it's like, okay, I know you're going to take the yard or you're going to try for 2 because they gave you the free yard, but 1 point gives you a 3-possession game. Right? Like, doesn't that factor into your decision making and kind of override the desire to get the 2 points there? And those ones, like,
was that where Jacksonville committed the penalty?
That was at the end of the half. Yeah, I believe they committed the penalty and gave them the yard.
And that's what I look. This team, and this again, you have so many fans who puff out their chest about the tush push. And it's 1st and 9, and it's 1st and 9 for the Philadelphia Eagles, and it's not first, it's 1st and 10 for everybody else. And they're giving out free yards, and you're at the 1-yard line with this team and the tush push, and you're not going for it. Yeah, I don't know.
Okay, but what would the 2 have done there that the 1 didn't do?
Well, you're getting extra points. They're giving you an extra point.
I know, but the 1 made it a 3-possession game.
You default. To me, it comes down to a simple of they gave us a free yard, we're going to take advantage of it.
So there should be no other factors you don't think that are involved in that decision?
I said it last night. When they give you, remember, you're talking about the Jacksonville, you're not talking about the Detroit Lions. When they give you a free yard, you're supposed to show the confidence in the tush push to say, we're going to go in there. Why are you supposed to show it? Because of the demonstrated success over a long period of time. Now, give Jacksonville credit. Jalen Hurts said that yesterday, and I don't even know if it's the case, but he said they did a good job, and he warned us that they had a good front and all that bullshit. But so give the other team some credit as well. But I can't believe, after watching this team over the past number of years with the tush push and all that chest blowing out and saying it's 1st and 9, it's 1st and 9, it's 1st and 9, and then Jacksonville gives you a yard on dumb play, and you're not going to take advantage of it.
I know, but taking advantage of it is such a minor thing.
Everybody
do anything for you.
To use Howard Eskin, what is everybody going, dog shopping? Why is everybody afraid of everything? Oh, but only after failure.
Well, no, I'm not afraid of it. And I did speak about the 1st and 9 thing you brought up. I just think other things need to be factored into these decisions. I mean, like I said, what does the 2 get you there that the 1 doesn't? Another extra point. Great. It's already a 3-possession game with a surefire kick from Jake Elliott that's 99% chance going to go through the uprights. Like, does that not factor into the decision at all? I understand what you're saying. It's a massive competitive advantage.
Once they commit the penalty, it does not factor into the decision.
Oh,
Maybe it will now. Maybe it will now, because now they have to go back and they say, what's going on with the tush push? Maybe, it's not Jason Kelsey out there. He's not stealing 12 inches. We joked about that with Nick Sirianni last week. You don't have that sort of cachet with the officials anymore with a younger player. You don't have all these little things, these little nuances that you had before. So maybe you rethink it now. And maybe, Dan was talking about that on the postgame show. He's telling that story about Jimmy Johnson.
Right.
about making mistakes, but he only learned from making those mistakes. So maybe now there's not as much confidence when they go and watch the film. Maybe now there's not as much confidence in it and you scale it back and you go in your direction. But I'm saying in that moment with this particular team, with the success that this team has had with that particular play, you're thinking to yourself, well, they just gave us an extra point. I'm taking it. I have no problem with that. None whatsoever. You can't go through your life and say 1st and 9, 1st and 9, 1st and 9. But I want to hit the pause button because the Jacksonville Jaguars have showed up and didn't even look like they had a pulse. Didn't even look like they had a pulse.
I
And
get it.
yet,
But
if you're not
you
taking the free point, I don't agree with that. I'm sorry.
even in that moment when a point after,
It's not Detroit. You're
I know, but
rolling
doesn't that
this
also
team.
factor in, like, you don't need these extra points? You're playing Jacksonville. Take the point. It's the simple decision and move on from there. I mean, I think in a game like Detroit, it makes more sense because you know you're going to need points. And like you said, I don't have an issue with every decision. The 4th and 3 early in the game, I agree. That was common.
So were
for
you in the
Eagles to
1st
go
and
for
9
it.
crowd? Because I never heard it from you, but were you in the 1st
Well,
and
I
9
did say
crowd?
it last week. Now, Nick mentioned it. Didn't Nick mention it at a press conference before?
Nick has talked about 1st and 9, but he's also tempered people and said, don't go too overboard with it. But yeah, we have a big advantage. Typically they have had a big advantage because of that particular play. Typically.
No,
I
I
mean,
get it.
that's the part where I don't get. Like, I can't get. That's where I totally go off the rails with some people. Like, you're just, and I'm not blaming you, but you gave me the term today, the outcome bias. You're just looking at the end of the game and going back and saying, "Oh, this didn't work, so I would have done that." Look, if he knew it wasn't going to work, he wouldn't have done it. I mean, isn't that common sense?
No,
Isn't that
it
baked
is,
into
but
it?
I think we're leaving out the situational element of it, that each situation has a different circumstance and a
Oh, yeah.
different outcome depending on what you do.
So you don't think that
You can't just take that though, John, and throw it out the window. Like,
I can throw it out the window against Jacksonville. Now, again, maybe if it's a good team, I can't throw it out the window. You're acting like you shouldn't have confidence again, and you should be buying the dog for protection because the Jacksonville. Oh, we got to get up 3 scores on the Jacksonville Jaguars, who've had, I don't know what it
I
was.
just don't know what the 2 points does there. Like,
What
other than give you an extra 1 point, what does it do? It doesn't make it a bigger possession game. And what does it do? And the fact that you can't guarantee execution in that moment
can't
means
guarantee execution on an extra point.
I'm not. What's the chances?
But the chances are obviously on individually much more on.
Yeah, they're higher.
But the reason
Can't guarantee anything. I know that.
overall, the reason why people do this kind of stuff is because the 2-point conversion is going to be over 50%, and the extra point is going to be 98, 97%, whatever it is. So actually, it works out that the 2-point over the long term is going to help you out if you're successful at the rate the Eagles are successful. That's why they do this shit to begin with. But in that particular instance, again, when a bad team is given up, a free yard with this particular team. Yeah, man. That's one where I don't even know why people bother arguing about it. I mean, that's what you do. And if you're talking about from a literal sense, what does it do? Maybe nothing, but from a figurative sense, you put the foot on the throat of a bad opponent, and maybe they don't have that fight in the second half. But Jacksonville had 31 yards at halftime. I had to look it up.
Yeah,
31
insane.
total yards. And you're worried about,
No, but isn't that? I mean, yeah, there's also another element to that. Like, they're doing nothing. Just take the point and move on. But John, I mean, you tell me all the time, don't argue over the outcome. I've shifted my mindset because of you, and I've gone to the decision making. In that moment, specifically that one moment right there, I can look at that and say, that's flawed decision making.
All right.
To
Well,
to not
then I don't want to hear, for those who agree with you, I never want to hear the 1st and 9 bullshit again. If you're
no,
going to
but that
say
but
that,
why does
if
that have
you're
to
going to
apply to
say
every
that,
single time?
if you're going to say that, and it's 1st and 9 for us and 1st and 10 for everybody else, and you're going to beg off against a poor opponent who was just giving you a free yard, yeah, I can't even wrap my head around that thinking. I mean, that's so scared. That's such a scared way. That's such a scared signal to your team.
Taking an extra point is being scared. Come on.
What you're giving they're giving the Jacksonville Jaguars. You don't think that affects the offensive line? You know who's out there? Lane Johnson and Landon Dickerson and Jordan Mailata, who's injured right now, are lobbying. We got to run the football more because we're so damn physical, and we're going to oppose our will. And you're going to go up to those guys and say, "No, no, sorry, guys, it's Jacksonville. We can go up 3." Yeah, I don't. You know, part of it is sending messages to your team, and that's the way the Eagles want to play, and they want to bully people. Well, go bully people and get the freaking tush push that you've done, even when you weren't bullying people. I can't even wrap my head around that one.
Let's get through some
Now the fake tush push, don't do that.
That was a bad decision. I mean, there's no doubt about it. You get stopped twice. They should have just doubled down on it and went for it again there. But anyway, I digress on that. Let me read a couple super chats. Jeff, I'm going to skip the commercial break and we'll come right to you. Let me just read through a couple supers. We've got a lot of people checking in, and I want to read them real quick. And then, Jeff, I'll bring you up in just a couple minutes here. James Carver checks in. James, big thanks, man. John, let me read off a couple. James sent 4 of them. Man, James, thank you, bro. Good to see you back,
Thanks,
man. I know he's been struggling with his leg, so big shout out to James. Prayers up to you, man. Thank you so much for the support. James says, legs in bad shape. Can't watch today, but I'll catch later on. I watched a clip of J-Mac and Sills last night, and with respect, J-Mac missed his idea of how history is not just inter, but intra-game. The first few missed pushes are okay, but falls within game are also history. And then he follows up. Many players were obviously hurt, like Becton's shoulder and arm were visible. Saquon's leg and Fred went out. So that's got to be considered in-game. Coaches make their money adjusting off stats given game facts within the game. And then he says, yes, the 92% is not only across games and players, but success rate must also be considered within the game. Players' health and or even being on that day affect success probabilities. He's making a good point. Many players failed, shouldn't have continued to play, but so did Nick on both calls and not protecting players from themselves. Steen versus Becton, or even Fred at least with the pushes. I think he does bring up a good point there, and that's
Well,
where some of my
I
I
mean,
have some of the issues.
uh, it's a good point, but it's also outcome based on outcome bias. Like again, you know, the Saquon. Yeah, Joe Banner tweeted during the game that he didn't look right, which is ironic because he had a whatever 159 yards.
159 yards.
No, he meant health
40
wise.
in the passing game. I think he had 40.
He meant health wise. So, you know, he's and everybody's dealing with something at this point of the game. But I go back to, you know, this is the week where everybody got excited because Lane was lobbying to run the football. And you know, they're all lobbying, and Mackay's in there as well, and they're all lobbying for these situations. And you know, again, part of leading a football team is also, you know, motivating the players in many different ways, and one of them is leaning on the strength of your football team, which has been the strength of your football team. Now, you know, as far as Dan, and he and I got into it, and I apologized to him, he apologized to me, but you know, he gave a good story about Jimmy Johnson, but he didn't realize that he was making my point. Jimmy learned after that game, not during that game, after that game. Now, I guarantee you, Nick Sirianni goes back and he says, "What's going on? What happened? Why isn't this succeeding? Well, this has been so successful." And maybe down the road, maybe in Dallas, although they're so banged up, it's probably not going to matter there either.
You might have Cooper Rush next week.
Yeah, but maybe he makes a different decision. That's fair game down the road if they continue to have struggles with this and it no longer becomes 1st and 9. But the part I just can't wrap my head around is the people acting like this has not been a significant advantage for the Philadelphia Eagles, and you got to lay up like you're screwing up like Kevin Costner in Tin Cup. You got to lay up against the Jacksonville Jaguars. No, put your foot on their throat. They didn't execute the play, and it didn't work. I have no problem with that decision. Now, again, that when you get cued off the tush push, that has not been successful. And I think that's fair game. I think that they did get spooked. If you want to blame them for something, they got spooked.
Yeah, they did. Let's keep rolling because I want to get Jeff up ASAP, but we got a bunch of these chats, and I want to make sure we thank everybody for their support of the show today. Anthony Wilson checks in. John, I love the fact your takes are logical, not for shock value to get a rise out of the fans. Yes, Nick should and can be a lot better, but so can the execution of the players. If they execute, they'd be 7-1. It's not all on Nick. There you go. That's a good super chat. Anthony, thank you, man. Appreciate your support. As always, a little love for you there, Johnny Mac. Appreciate you.
Yeah, rare these days.
And then here we go. Now we got someone coming back at you. Christopher Darker checks in. J-Mac, I watched your video last night. You defend Sirianni, and that's fine. But how, as a coach, can you not realize the tush push has not been as effective without Mailata in there? That's criminal to do that. Kind of in vain with
criminal. It's criminal to do. First of all, the tackles don't have that much impact on the tush push. It's the guys inside. It's landing.
It's definitely more the guys inside.
The guy, yeah. So no, I mean, yeah. Jordan will tell you. Ironically, Jordan will tell you, yeah, I don't do much on the tush push. So yeah, I'm not gonna agree with that. But no, they're not the same team overall. Obviously, without Jordan Mailata, I mean, that's a big. And Fred's done a really good job. On that Jalen Hurts touchdown, Fred was moving, man, and he's a big dude. So he's been a pleasant surprise. But you do want to get Jordan back in there, no question.
Yeah, no doubt. Big thanks. Thank you, Christopher. Appreciate it, man. I'm gonna get through one more of these, and then I'll try and read them all out a little bit later on. I got to get Jeff Kerr. Jay Sid comes in with $20. Man, thanks everybody. You guys are great this morning, and I appreciate all your support of Jacob. Jay Sid says Nick needs to take points, especially early. This was just that like the 10 wins last year. Players win despite the head coach. Stop defending Nick. You kill momentum. Bad habits will come back in a Detroit game, already Atlanta as well. A lot of people drawing similarities to that game, John. Yeah, this is going to be a big line of thinking.
Take the points. Outcome bias. That's what I'll yell back. Outcome bias.
Well, I gave Johnny Max
you should go back. Yeah, you should go back. Yeah, blame Zander for that one. He deserves credit. You should go back to all their successful aggressive plays and give back the points.
No, I'm not saying
buddy
that.
Jeff Kerr. We got to get Jeff Kerr.
Yeah, let me get Jeff Kerr. Appreciate everybody, man.
Give back the points.
I'm going to get to all the super
Don't take the points. Give them back. Give them back. Give them all back. Can we give them back like college? Jeff's a big Penn State guy. That'll.
Oh man, we don't want to start there.
You want to give back wins.
I got my man.
Give them back. There he is.
Jeff, what's going on, my man? How you doing in this overreaction Monday? Welcome to the show, brother.
Well, as John could tell yesterday, I didn't have a voice thanks to Penn State, and it's recovering.
There you go. You sound good, man. What'd you make of the game yesterday? Obviously, a lot of talk about Nick Sirianni. Before we get into some of the specific stuff, just kind of your perspective on what you saw yesterday. Eagles win 28-23 and moved to 6-2 in the year.
I feel like yesterday was the John McMullen special. Talent wins games, not actual coaches.
Well, that's true. Yes, that's very true. But, and look what's going on. Look, Nick Sirianni, by the way, and I said this last week on the show, it's amazing to me. Now he's 40-19, quickest, obviously, Eagles coach ever to 40 wins, greatest winning percentage in Eagles history, second best winning percentage in the NFL since he's been here, second best to Matt LaFleur as a coach, 13th of all time, Jeff. And you want people, they're a small group, you want people who want to fire him after winning a game. and I'm defending Nick Sirianni. No, I'm just not insane. That's all.
Who's the last head coach this fan base has liked?
That's a good question. I get at times, Andy, at times, but
Is it Buddy Ryan? He didn't win shit.
Yeah, Buddy. Yeah, he didn't do shit in the playoffs, obviously. Yeah, it's amazing. I mean, what do you want to be Las Vegas? They just fired Luke Getsy and Rick.
They just hired Luke Getsy.
Yeah. I don't get people. Yeah, was it a good second half? No. But most of that was due to mistakes on the field.
I was more upset at Nick yesterday, not for passing on the field goals, but correct me if I'm wrong here, guys. Braden Mann did the kickoffs yesterday, right? I still haven't rewatched the game.
Yeah, well, they go back and forth. I did, I haven't rewatched it yet either. Braden definitely kicked most of them. And he has kicked most of them this year for people that don't know.
So my point is, you pass up on 39, you pass up on 42. The result's the result. But then you're kind of boxed into a corner, and you have to kick Jake on a 57-yarder. And, Jake says, okay, I should make it, whatever. But he's basically going in there cold, doesn't really know.
Yeah, Zander brought that up.
Yeah, doesn't really know the elements. And I'm like, well, why don't you just go for it if you keep going to go for it?
Yeah, the 57-yarder is difficult because I think the league as a whole, so many of these kickers make these kicks and we start to think of them as easy. That's not an easy kick. No. I'd even consider punting there, to be honest.
You know what? I actually thought he was going to punt. I didn't think he was going to kick there, man.
But I have a hard time after watching Jake for so many years, not having confidence in Jake, but he hasn't been quite as good as he typically is this year. So there's been a little slippage. I mean, I can see the other side, but I'm not going to kill the guy for trusting Jake Elliott. I mean,
I'm not either. It's just when he decided to do it. I think what bothers me more with all this is the inconsistency of it. And I just, and again, you're going with the ebbs and flows of the game. I understand that, but it just seems like this happens more often than not. And that's why I feel people are really getting upset.
Boy, I don't see inconsistency with the tush pushes. Like, that's where Zander and I were talking about. I mean, if somebody gives them a free yard, they go for the tush push. Now, maybe that changes now because they were unsuccessful.
Well, that was the other thing, too. When you look at the replays, they definitely got the first one in.
Yeah, I thought.
The second one.
Zander says not so much.
Well, I didn't say no. It looked like it could go either way. And because they ruled that he didn't get in, that's where I thought that it didn't have conclusive evidence to say that, okay, we're going to overturn that. Like, it was never clear to me that the ball crossed the plane. It looked like it from afar, but because they made the call on the field, when I watched the replay, I didn't expect them to overturn it, and they didn't.
Well, it's weird because they overturned one last week, and I wasn't sure if they got in or not. Yeah. I'm like, well, they overturned it last week. They
Shocking. NFL officiating is inconsistent.
And by the way, guys, that's around the league. By the way, John, did you hear what Dan Campbell said about players getting ejected and the controversial calls? And
I did see Brian Branch got thrown out, but I didn't hear what Dan said.
So Dan went after the league. He's going to get fined for this.
Oh, well,
he goes, anybody ever notice there's always player ejections and controversial calls for 4:25 and 8 p.m. games? He said the NFL doesn't give a shit about 1 o'clock games.
Yeah, I think Dan is correct.
Yeah, I think he is too.
Yeah. I think they don't give a shit about yeah, he's right. All they care about all they care about is having close games. That's all they care about.
I mean, they're probably scoring yesterday. Eagles Jacksonville was close. It wasn't a 40-point blowout like Lane Johnson wanted.
Yeah, and it should have been the way they were playing.
It should have been.
I mean, Jacksonville had 36 yards
at halftime.
Really, with 9 minutes until they scored one on that drive. I think they were 36 yards, Jeff, total offense.
I mean, it looked like it was going to be a dominant victory. And look, a win's a win in the NFL. But if it wasn't
But you see
for
this happen all the time. You really do.
every week,
Yeah.
I'm still confused of why Doug, press, whoever calls a wheel route with a receiver on, what was it, second down on the Kobe's pick. And I'm like, why are you doing that?
Well, I actually like the thought process. I mean, N'Kobe's known for not being the greatest in coverage.
He was on Sunday, though.
He played really well. He deserves credit in coverage, and he wasn't his typical self. He was saying after where he's going downhill, where you expect him to be good. He took a shot, and that was a bad throw by.
It was a really bad throw. Yeah,
It was overthrown. It was inside. It was way inside of where it was supposed to go. And then, they said on the broadcast it was actually Dearness Johnson. And he couldn't track the ball. He didn't know where the ball was. But N'Kobe did a good job with that high pointing the football and walked it off essentially, other than victory formation. But I like the idea. I think anytime I can get a linebacker and it with a guy who can catch the football, and I don't know how good Johnson is, but I assume they did it for a reason.
Yeah, I mean, I don't even think he's their best pass catching back. I still think it's ETN.
Yeah, it's probably that maybe is the valid thing from Jacksonville's perspective, criticism. But I don't know enough about Dearness Johnson, but I like the idea in theory, because typically N'Kobe is not great in coverage. Take a shot, try to win the game. But that's a terrible throw by Trevor Lawrence.
John, I'm still shocked your voice isn't out like mine was yesterday after hearing your epic rant, by the way.
Oh, well, it goes in and out, but
was the whole press box looking at John when he was going on?
No, I was in the
no. He was. I actually didn't hear him, so I found out.
I was in the coach's box.
Martin Frank and I found out after we got into our cars, and we're like, "Oh, okay, like this is good stuff. This is good TV." Xander, you're just like kind of sitting there, like,
"Oh, that was great." I mean, listen, I don't want personal barbs, but I did think it was great debate, and I kind of agree with both sides. Where I understand what John's saying. It's been a massive competitive advantage, but I also understand there's game time situations. There's different circumstances that happen that I think need to be factored into.
Still outcome bias. Xander gave me that. He's going to rue the day.
Yeah,
still outcome bias. It's all outcome bias.
I'm just laughing at Xander.
Well, John or Jeff, where are you? Where are you on the spectrum of what you thought of Nick Sirianni's performance yesterday? I'm sure you're on social media. It's not just me and fans that are roasting Nick Sirianni. It's everybody's leaves more points on the board than Nick Sirianni. Emmanuel Acha, all these guys out there kind of ripping into Nick Sirianni. Where do you fall on the spectrum with it?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people have been talking about nationally. Like we were talking about in the CBS room yesterday. Like I'm talking about with my editors. They're like, how many points has Nick left on the board? Because obviously they're watching Green Bay Detroit, and our game was probably the most regional game of all time yesterday. And my boss lives in Jacksonville. He goes, Nick has left at least 9 on the board. And I'm like, well, yeah, if you go by the 2-point convert, then he's trying to chase the points he lost back. And, I'm all for burying a team too. But the way the Eagles offense was moving, that's why I didn't have as much of an issue with some of the fourth down decisions.
Does True Media keep record? They should go back to 2021 and go back and see how many points the Eagles have added. I won't even use Nick because it's an organizational thing.
Yeah, it goes. You tell me every week. It's a week-to-week league. Every game is its own.
Well, yeah, but that's why. Like, I'm not going to acquiesce to uneducated people because they don't understand it's about long-term philosophy.
Well,
that's why I say that's a long-term philosophy. So go back to 21. True Media, you can probably get this, Jeff. Go back to 2021. And see how many points the Eagles have added over that time frame compared to the rest of the league by being as aggressive as they are.
I bet Devin the Lions are in the top 5.
Oh yeah, Lions, same thing. And Dan Campbell, had to move because people didn't understand it. So believe me, I know nobody's going to understand it. I know Dan Orlovsky's not going to. I know Emmanuel Acho is not going to understand because they're about the week and getting the clip for the week, and this week they can pile on. Now, 2 weeks from now, if the Eagles beat Washington, they'll be the greatest thing in the world again. Same people
Well,
will be saying the exact opposite thing.
it's funny because I really don't want to go out of my way to defend Dallas here, but you guys saw the fake punt Dallas did
I didn't
yesterday.
even see it, actually.
Okay, so Dallas is down 14-10. They decide to they're playing at midfield. They decide to do a fake punt. I think it was like 4th and 2, 4th and 3. Brian Anger throws the ball, and the guy's covered. Obviously, it didn't work. I think Atlanta was able to stiff it out, but they're like, if it's going to be Orlowski, if it's going to be 4th and 2 or 4th and 3, why doesn't Dak Prescott, your $60 million quarterback? Fine, but what if the receiver is wide open? It's a touchdown. It's execution.
Yeah.
I didn't mind them trying it. Like, they're desperate right now.
All right, Jeff, I got a question for you. I got a specific instance on Nick Sirianni that I had a problem with, and me and John talked about it, but I want to get your perspective on it. The end of the half, right? The Birds are up 16. They could take the point after and go up 17. They got the Jags to go off sides. They got the free yard, and then they decided to go for the 2-point conversion there. My logic was, I know you think you can get the 2, and I have no issue with that thinking because it's worked in the past. But in that circumstance, the point after makes it a 3-possession ball game. What does that extra point do for you to go for it there instead of just making it a 3-possession game? That was my line of thinking. John says the minute they jump offside, they're going to go for it because they believe they can get it.
Yeah.
That's his line of thinking. Where do you fall on like that specific decision right there?
That's where I kind of felt they were going to go for it too. I'm kind of in the John camp on that because look, it's one is obviously shorter than 2, so they're going to go for it. And their tush push going into yesterday was actually higher than it was last year in terms of conversion rate. So they're banking on that. I just felt he was chasing points he missed earlier. That's just me though.
That's kind of how I felt about the 57-yard.
But he was taking the extra point. He's not chasing. They gave him the yard. He's taking the extra point. If they don't give him the yard, he's kicking the extra point. I mean, he only went for it because they gave him the extra yard. And I don't have a problem with that. That's their philosophy. And I also brought up, Jeff, on the week of Lane Johnson and Jordan Mailata and Landon Dickerson going, let's be physical. Let's be physical. Let's bully people. On that very week, he's probably trying to buoy them as well and say, all right, guys, go blow this team into the end zone. They made a mistake. Let's take advantage of it. Yeah, that's one I don't even know why it's even a thought process.
And again, this is probably more Kellen Moore than Nick here. The way Saquon Barkley was running the ball yesterday, why don't you try giving it to him? Just let him do it.
Well, they're not going to go over the tush push into it. Now they might.
I'm not even talking about that. Maybe other 4th and 1. By the way, John, I'd love to get an explanation from Nick either today or Wednesday on the kind of trickery they were doing with the tush push. Remember, they had the false start.
That I don't like.
I didn't like it either. It didn't it worked when they ran it, but it just didn't. I don't know. I just wasn't a fan of it.
No. Yeah. That they're trying to get too cute. Yeah, that I think is a valid criticism. And they've done it before and it failed. It worked once, and ever since then, it hasn't worked all that well because you have so many people. So many things have to go right because you have so many people bunched up trying to stop it. So you get one guy missing a block, even a little bit off on his block, you get immediate penetration. I don't like it.
They really do miss Jordan in those situations. And I think the one to push in convert, Jack Driscoll was in, right?
I don't know. I have to rewatch, but
I thought that was the
play. Yeah. Fred got hurt on the touchdown.
So I think Jack was in on the 2. So
yeah. And they trust Jack though. But
they do. But let's put things into perspective here. That's your third
But as I
string right
said
tackle.
before, well, we had a listener who said that. I mean, let's be honest, it's not as much tackles on the tush push as or are you talking about the going straight ahead, it's about the interior offensive lineman. Now, the one where they've got a little bit too cute, it takes everybody, obviously.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I mean, yeah, it's like, how could you, and this is what I said, Jeff, to Zander and everybody. How many times, and I know you've heard it, how many times have you seen fans of this team bragging? Oh, it's 1st and 9 for us. It's 1st and 9 for us. It's 1st and 10 for everybody else. But, if we get it to 4th and 1, we're just going to take it. And then the minute it doesn't work, oh, how could you do that? I mean,
Well, I just think that leaves out the situational element of it. That's where I'm lost in my head. I'm like, is there no situational element to the decision-making process? I
but
understand
you
that you're
realize
very
that there were, you
successful at it.
do
Okay,
realize.
that's one category, though, in my decision. I'm very successful at this. Great. Now, shouldn't game situation, game circumstance, different things that are going
Well,
on
I'm
in a
speaking
given game
mainly, yes,
factor into
game
those decisions?
situations always come into it. But you do realize they were kicking the extra point when
Yeah,
they
and then they
went
got the
off
yard.
sides.
Yeah. No, I get it. Yep, you're right. I get that. I still would have taken
I
it.
mean, yeah, I don't know.
All right, I got a question for both of you that I want an answer to, and I'm genuinely asking because I think this is becoming what people, right or wrong, are beginning to wonder. This is a really, I believe, maybe wrongly, but I believe a very good roster in Eagles history. I think it's one of the better offensive rosters, at least, that the Eagles have ever had, maybe.
Very top heavy, but yes.
Very top heavy, but it's a very good roster when they're all healthy. And I know you got to stay healthy, which is a part of the NFL. Where does Nick Sirianni make this football team better? Where does he give them an advantage late in the year when you have the Detroits, the best teams in the league around? Where does Nick make this team better? And I'm genuinely asking. I'm not trying to rag on Nick. I'm asking from your perspective. Where does he give them a competitive advantage versus the best teams in the league? Jeff, I'll start with you.
Players play for him. That's one thing. I can't say on or off record. I'm pretty sure Detroit players play for Dan Campbell, but that's a really good football team too.
Yeah.
I don't think the Eagles are better than Detroit. I don't think anybody's better than Detroit right now. But can we honestly say that about the 49ers and Kyle Shanahan? Like these guys play for him? I don't know.
Yeah, no, I think I've always said I love Kyle's system, his play scheming, his play calling, but he's not a great game management coach.
No.
Part of that is because he's bogged down thinking about that shit, to be honest. So everybody's got their fallacies. I would turn it back. I would turn it back because look, as much access as people like I get and people like Jeff get, we can't tell you what insert coach's name is doing to make his team better on a definitive level. I can't tell you that about anybody.
You judge the coach based on the 1-loss record, and Nick Sirianni's got a pretty good 1-loss record.
Good.
Yeah, it's so. I mean, look.
That's what I if I were Nick and I've said it on the show, I'd point to the scoreboard. I'd go 40-19. Go after yourself.
Yeah,
I hear. Well, I certainly agree with that. But I do think there's. I mean, what would Doug Peterson's roster or record be with this roster? What would Andy Reid's record be with this roster? You know what I mean? Like, I get that.
Doug's record would be worse. Doug's record would be worse.
I don't know.
But Andy's would probably be better. But that's based on.
Can we keep things in perspective here? They are a Saquon Barkley drop away from being 7-1 right now.
Yeah.
They are, but there's other context there too. They also won a game that they won that they didn't have a point on the board until the fourth quarter. So,
there's always games you could have lost. And
I mean,
if Trevor Lawrence makes a good throw, they might lose that game.
If Dennis Allen isn't coaching the New Orleans Saints,
I'm not going to lie to you guys.
Here's what I love. I'm going to
split second. I thought the Jags were going to win yesterday when they had that big run and got it inside the 10. I'm like, no way, this is fucking happening right now. But then N'Kobe Dean made the play.
I'm going to give Saquon some love because people think I hate Saquon, even though I'm the one who said he was going to have the biggest year. But I
John,
digress.
you're off, by the way. He's on pace for 2,200 yards.
I know.
Oh,
I'm way
shit.
off.
That's we got a lot more.
I'm way
jerseys
off,
coming in with
and I was
Saquon.
higher than anybody else, and I was at 16 to 1,700, and I'm way off. But right now, and he's already over 1,000. He went over 1,000 yesterday, so he's been phenomenal. But here's what I loved about Saquon: he was pissed off about the game he had.
Yeah,
He was pissed off.
He always is.
But that's partially what makes him great, because everybody else is trying to tell him how great he is for the Jimmy Snuka leap. And he's like, boy, I had that false start. I shouldn't have fumbled, even though it shouldn't have been overturned. The drop. And then the worst all, he had that first down that would have made it easier for the Eagles to win the game. And for some reason, I don't know if he didn't know where the first down was, or he said it was about ball security and he didn't know where nobody was near him. And he gave himself up like 4 or 5 yards short of the first down. So he was more pissed off about the stuff that he didn't do than the stuff he did.
I always say, if you want a good answer out of Saquon, this is just someone who knows enough people, knows him really well. Talk to him about the fumble. Talk to him about the stuff before.
I said nice leapfrog, and he wasn't happy with it, because he's like, he'd rather talk about his mistakes.
No, he's a guy, like, if you're gonna talk to him about like a great play he did, you gotta mention like he did, because no one knew he did it against. I did, because I was there, and I asked him, and he kind of smiled. And he said, "Can I get back to you later in the week on that?" And I'm like, "Yeah," but I know he didn't want to talk about that, but I think he was appreciative someone remembered it. Like, it wasn't the first time he's ever done that.
Yeah. By the way, that is the first thing they teach you not to do. So it's always like guys like that are like you're never supposed to leave your feet in the open field, because if somebody guesses right, you're going to get lit up.
Yeah.
Now,
and by the way, he got dinged up on that.
Yeah,
that was a really hard hit that he took when he landed.
super athletic guys are good. It's like Steph Curry. You don't tell average people to take 35 footers. I always use him as the example, but he can do it. But anyway, I was impressed by Saquon, because he was more, in tune with what he needs to fix.
Well, I think, John, people, I think that's people's mindset about Nick. I mean, look, that's a champion's mindset, the Saquon Barkley. When you put up 160 yards in the game, for crying out loud.
199 yards of offense.
Total. Yeah. I mean, unbelievable. And all you can think about, though, is the things you did wrong. And, we bring up Cilio because you guys had the debate yesterday. That's how Cilio approaches things. Whether you like him or not, whether you agree with him or not, you might hate him. A lot of people in the chat, I'm sure, hate him. I don't really care what you think of him. But he approaches things from you. If you want to be a champion, you have to get everything right, or you have to at least strive for that. And I think that's where people are with Nick, where, we got a great team. We're 6-2, and we should be 7-1, as Jeff points out. Is Nick Sirianni going to at some point cost us a game by not being able to understand situational football? I think it's a fair question. I really do. I think that's a very fair question.
All I have to say about the totality of the season right now, and I'm already looking forward to Sunday, you better make sure you beat that football team in Dallas next week.
It's Cooper Rush. Oh my gosh. If it's Cooper Rush, man.
Yeah, whether if it's Dak or Cooper, that team is reeling. Like, that team is so against their head coach. They're so against. I'm so tired of Jerry Jones's act. We're still all in. I get he has to say that, but it's like, dude, you're not all in. If you were all in, you wouldn't have signed Ezekiel Elliott to be your running back this year. you totally.
Who doesn't even come to meetings, evidently.
Yeah, he doesn't come to meetings. Like, you have the worst rush defense in the league. You have one of the worst pass.
I think Dallas might be easier than Jacksonville.
They might be.
They might be. With Cooper Rush, I think they will be.
I mean, it's really bad. Like, and the Eagles haven't won there since 2017. Like, this year, really just stopped them. Oh, by the way, Washington plays Pittsburgh on Sunday. You have a chance to have the NFC East league going into Washington.
Do we have an update yet on AJ? I know it's early. And you probably major, not major. Like, do we know anything?
Did you want to hear what I was told? I was told it wasn't that bad.
Okay.
Yeah,
That's
he's
positive sign.
getting an MRI this morning. They believe it's nothing too serious. That doesn't mean.
John, did you see him go out after halftime? Then he went back in,
Yeah, he came out after halftime and
hugged
then went back
Shady, and
in.
then went back in. Yeah, it
Yeah,
was
he hugged
weird.
Shady. Yeah, and then went back in. Yeah, he was coming out to play, and evidently
Something didn't feel right.
Eston didn't feel right, and he went back in, and he hugged Shady on the way. But obviously he's dealing with something. He's getting an MRI, but they believe that it's not terribly serious. That doesn't mean he's not going to miss a game or two.
I mean, you could miss two because they got a
Yeah.
Thursday night game.
Yeah. So, and that's another thing. That's another positive that they were able to do some things in the passing game without AJ because it's been ugly at times.
because normally their offense goes flat, and it didn't.
Yeah.
They were able to move the ball, and look, it needed a great throw and a great catch from Devonta Smith, but yeah, you're executing. That's part of it.
Yeah.
Jeff,
And Jahan Dotson made a big play.
Oh man, what a
Yeah.
catch that was from Dotson.
Yeah.
Showing up. That was a big catch.
He's made some crazy catches before in his life.
Yeah, he's a first round pick. Yeah, he can do some things.
Yeah, I mean, his route running is still a lot to be
see it.
desired,
I mean,
but
happy it showed up. That was that. I hope everybody loved the catch.
I'll tell you what, I think
we paid a third-round pick for that catch, Jeff. We paid a third-rounder for that catch.
Oh, but I was told we got a fifth back.
Yeah, right.
That's what a lot of people.
Let me ask you about the defense, man. What'd you think of them yesterday? How about Nakobe Dean, Zach Bourne? I mean, both of them get an interception.
Don't forget Cooper.
Zach Bourne looks like a top 5 linebacker in the NFL. Maybe
Cooper DeJean.
He's unbelievable.
Don't forget Cooper.
Yeah, Cooper was amazing.
By the way, an underrated
I just called him DeJean.
An underrated player from that defense yesterday, and he had a really good statistical game we have not talked about. Josh Sweat, 2 third-down sacks, 5 third-down pressures.
Great.
We talked about him on the post game. Yep, he's quietly putting together.
Have you guys got into the whole Bryce Huff has only played 6 snaps yesterday, and 5 are on the final drive?
He hurt his hand. He hurt his hand.
Okay, yeah.
But I'm like joking myself. Where are they auditioning to trade him?
I know, Jeff. I honestly wondered that, but there's no way they do it with the dead cap hit and
no,
just. I don't think it's possible.
Yeah.
I mean, they could be lying, but I don't think they are.
I don't think they are either. Like, why would you?
Hand.
Yeah, why would you lie about something like that?
Okay, but wait, you're telling me it's a hand injury, but you also just told me, Jeff, that he played 5 of his 6 snaps on the last drive.
It's weird,
like, where
right?
did he hurt the hand?
That's a good point. I did not realize that.
Or did Bryce Huff do what Jeff Kerr would do back in the day? Put me in the effing game.
Vic Fangio, is this a pissing match, you think, between him and Howie, where it's like he's like, I ain't playing him because he's not better than the other guys, and Howie's probably like, I just gave him $51 million. You got to give him more than 6 snaps.
It could be.
Nolan Smith's been playing better than him recently.
No one's coming along nicely. I've been giving Nolan.
I didn't realize that.
Jeff,
he all his snaps were late. I didn't realize.
At least 5 of the 6 were. I don't know when the other one was, but I'm like, all of a sudden, Bryce Huff is on the field. I'm looking like, what
that throws things into question.
Yeah.
Definitely. That's something we'll be working on this week.
Yeah, I just said to myself, like, I realized he wasn't playing, and all of a sudden he's in the game in the last series, and like, hey, everybody's worried about him driving down the field. I'm like, what the hell is Bryce Huff in the game right now?
Well, I know. I mean, just in general, they don't. I mean, if you're not playing Bryce Huff, you're playing essentially 3 edge rushers. They don't want to do that. I mean, they want a rotation. I mean, that's you talk about wearing down Brandon Graham. If you're limiting that rotation even more, so I can't imagine. I mean, then you have to play Alex Hunt at least.
Yeah, you would think.
So that's a weird situation.
Isaiah Rodgers had a quietly good game yesterday too.
Yeah, the only mistake I saw Isaiah make was on that 4th down. I didn't watch the all 22 yet or see like what happened there, but that 4th down late in the game, and he was. I don't know what happened there. He was way off. Trevor Lawrence had an easy throw.
He kind of bit. That's really what happened.
Okay, yeah.
Well, and overall, look, I mean, anytime you give up what was it, 220 yards,
Yeah,
whatever it was.
not very many.
Yeah.
That's good for the problem is they were 36, you know, with 9 minutes left in the third quarter. So
And yeah, then they go off. It's
yeah. So that's the frustrating part there. But overall, you can't complain much about the defense. I mean,
you really can't complain much about anything
That's
outside
what I
of
said.
a
From a
certain
player
guy.
perspective, yeah, from a player perspective, I mean, the defense gave up what was it? 215 total yards. Jalen Hurts
215.
was 18 to 24 for 230 and 2 touchdowns. Saquon Barkley was 27 carries, 159 yards, 5.9 average and a touchdown. Devontae Smith caught 87 yards. Saquon Barkley had 40 passing yards and a touchdown. I mean, everybody played good. Everybody
John,
played good.
Yeah,
on the field.
but come on, that's what I'm saying. But
by the way,
there's like
John created the
4th and 3.
soundbite yesterday.
What's
John
that?
created,
Go ahead.
you created the soundbite of yesterday.
Oh yeah, Jalen.
Jalen, you know what? I almost felt like just wrapping up his set. I'm like, what do you get? Like, they say I can't throw the deep ball. Well, you're 6 for 9 for like 230 yards with 4 touchdowns on your last.
I gotta go and I still didn't listen to that because I was on the post game show.
It was awesome.
Yeah,
I'm sitting
John
right
mentioned
behind
it on the
John,
postgame.
and I'm like smiling the whole time because it's like Jalen like just basked in glory when John talks.
Jalen, people are shocked by this, but Jalen likes me. I don't know why, but you know,
That's not hard for me to believe.
Yeah, it's not hard for me to believe either.
Because you know, people were all upset during the training camp when because he was looking at me, so I answered the question. You know,
I was right next to you, and I'm like,
the famous. I didn't write it.
Yeah,
Jeff, we got
I
to run.
wrote it.
Franklin coming up. Just your final thoughts, man, on the game yesterday. Got to kind of move a little quick here on Birds, but what were your final thoughts on the game yesterday?
Look, they got the win. They're 6-2. I mean, I can't complain about too much. They're doing what they're supposed to be doing right now. They're winning football games. I don't know if they're a Super Bowl contender or not. I don't think anybody's beating Detroit right now, but it's November. I know it. I know I keep just adding the month, but look, you're putting yourself in position to win the NFC East. You're putting yourself in position to go deep into the playoffs right now. It's just got to keep stacking the wins up.
Stack them. Dallas, stack it in Dallas and the House of Horrors that's been, and then Washington. Then it really revs up because that team's legit.
And then you got the Rams on 10 days. I'll tell you what, I can't wait for December when you got the Ravens, the Commanders, the Steelers. We're gonna have some fun football.
That's when the stakes are high, everybody.
We're gonna have a bad week if Baltimore shows up with their A game.
Baltimore showed up with their A game yesterday.
Yeah,
holy crap.
Jeff, thanks for joining, man. We'll talk to you again next week. We got to run, all right, brother?
Yeah, sounds great. Thanks, Andy.
Thanks, Jeff.
Yeah, that's a great segment with Jeff today. Appreciate him checking in. Appreciate everybody in the chat. Make sure you guys hit that like button. We got a lot in here today, Johnny Mac. Almost 750 of them on YouTube and almost 900 total. So thanks, everybody, for watching and checking in on the show today. Make sure you guys hit that like button if you're enjoying the show. Before I get to a break, I do have to run through a couple more super chats, John. We got a lot of them, and I want to make sure that people get their voice heard. Nosty Beats. Eagles also got away with one. DeJean was early on that 4th down stop. Did you see that, John? I didn't see that.
I haven't watched it back, but
DeJean, he's becoming the best 4th down player in the league.
Yeah, I mean, that was a great play because, N'Kobe explained it pretty well. Brandon Graham actually recognized it first, and he alerted Cooper and N'Kobe. N'Kobe, sort of made sure that Cooper understood what was happening as well, and they really communicated well. I don't know if he was early. I have to rewatch the game. Didn't get much sleep as it is. I'll be rewatching it today, but I can tell you he's playing really well. And sometimes hey, that's why I don't complain about officials. Sometimes it breaks your way. Sometimes it doesn't. Wouldn't shock me if he was there early, but it looked good. It was bang, bang. And he's playing really well, to put it mildly.
No doubt about it. Nosty Beats, thank you, man. A couple more super chats coming. Before I do that, let me tell you guys about the great people at BetUS. I put the promo code on the screen, YouTube 150. Go check out BetUS today. It's betus.com.pa. That's betus.com.pa. They give you 150% sign-up bonus on your first deposit, 125% on your second and third deposits, all up to $2,000. So big thanks to them for sponsoring the show today. Thank you, BetUS. Let's keep rolling through a couple super chats here. Johnny Mac. Brian Garner checks in. Weird game. I didn't like the 4th and 3 or the 4th and inches play call. Fred wasn't good. Bad fumble, Barkley sliding, and CJ Gardner-Johnson was horrible. We've gotten a lot of comments that CJ was terrible.
Yeah,
I wasn't.
the Jacksonville's two 2-point conversions. Those were awful defensive plays. I don't know what the Eagles were doing.
Yeah, I don't know.
And CJ I know was on one of them, but yeah, CJ hasn't played great this year, to be honest. So that's something that needs to improve. I think that's fair. 4th and 3, I've talked about. The play was there, and I assume if it would have worked, and Jalen would have thrown the ball on time, I assume you would have been happy. So that's why I don't worry too much about that one. It's been a big advantage over a large sample size for the Eagles as a whole, dating back to Doug Peterson, even before Nick Sirianni. So that's why I don't worry about that too much. 4th and inches. Yeah, I didn't like that. I didn't like the cuteness of it. I didn't like that one. But I agree with the philosophy of going for it. But I didn't like what they tried to do.
No doubt. We got Chris Franklin coming up in about 6 minutes. Everybody, thanks for being here. Let's keep rolling. We got a bunch more. I'm gonna read 2 off in a row here because they're both about AJ and our team. We kind of hit on this. And thank you for the $5, man, for the super chat. Any update on AJ? Couldn't pinpoint when he hurt the knee yesterday. I couldn't either. And anytime you hear like out for game parentheses knee, you just get nervous. I do. I don't know about everybody else. I do. And then Prince says, A.J. Brown has avoided any serious issues with his knee and is expected to be fine. I'm not sure if someone's reporting that or where Prince got that, but I'm not on social.
Yeah, he's getting an MRI, but they don't expect it to be terribly serious. So that, basically when you think of knee injuries, obviously the worst would be ACL, nothing of that nature. So again, we'll see what the MRI says, but they believe they have avoided anything really significant.
Good stuff there. We'll see what the update is on that later in the week. Steve checks in. If you bet -7.5 on the Eagles, I bet you'd be looking at it different, Johnny. No way.
You're probably right, but I don't bet. That's one of the reasons
I don't bet either. I'm not a betting man.
But I encourage you to bet at BetUS. But one of the reasons I don't bet is because I don't want to think like that.
Yeah, it's you're an objective reporter and you take pride in that, and you should because you're really good at it. So I think it makes complete sense to me.
Yeah, I don't want to be worried about.
Steve might bring up a good point. There was a couple calls there where you're like, "Whoa, what's going on in this game?" And you're just like, "What the fuck?" But I hear you, Steve. Rich Nuts says, "Sorry, JM, 3 score with Jacks getting second half. If they score still 2 scores, they have to shove. Doesn't mean you use it every time. Bad decision there." Rich is in my camp.
You're not. It's a bad outcome. Just say bad outcome, and I won't yell at you.
But wasn't it a bad decision? I think it was a bad decision.
Say bad outcome. Tush push for this team is never a bad decision coming into this game.
Oh, there's no situational element to it.
No, now, when you talk about, we've been through it. No,
I don't want to rehash it.
And again, they were kicking the extra point. They only went for it because they gave him a free yard. They were kicking the extra point. Just say bad outcome. Why can't anybody just say it's a bad outcome? I don't like it. I wish they would have had a good outcome.
Well, it was a bad outcome, but I also thought it was a bad decision. That's where I won't go.
But if they score, you have no problem. You're not talking about it.
I still might be like, why the fuck did you need the extra?
Really? You're really going to go down there? You really think that you're going to say that?
No, we wouldn't be talking about it. It would have worked
completely. Go on. Don't even say it now, but go up there. You really think you look in the mirror, not me in the room. You really think you're going to be complaining about that?
No, we wouldn't be talking about it. There's no doubt you're right about that. Philly Don checks in. They need to get Bond signed now. Can't let him hit free agency. Penalties hurt us more than going for 2 and 4th downs. But I hate taking points off the board. I understand that. The Bond commentary, though. I'm with Philly Don, man. Get that guy under contract. You need some stability at that position, and he's
Yeah,
clearly
I wouldn't
showing
worry.
he can play pretty
I
good.
wouldn't worry about it. The Eagles will get it done. He's playing at a high level. But it works two
We got
ways.
TJ Edwards PTSD, John. We do.
You know, Zach's really excited that he got an opportunity, so he's got some loyalty to this organization as well. So I don't think you're going to have a problem, and I think Howie will act quickly to get a better deal than if he has to wait. That's just his nature. So I wouldn't lose too much sleep about that.
Philly Don, thanks for the Superman. Last one before we get to our break, and then we'll get to Chris Franklin. Rashid Mixon. What's up, Rashid? Good to see you, my man. He says, hey, John, Saquon is the Eagles' CMC. I've been saying it from day one.
I got, yeah. Well, yeah. Christian McCaffrey wouldn't make 4 mistakes in a month. So, you know, I got this on Twitter. And by the way, I hate having to do this on Saquon's, you know, he had a phenomenal game, but people go overboard. I mean, you're looking at highlights. And as I said on Twitter, yes, Christian McCaffrey can't Jimmy Superfly Snuka leap over somebody backwards. Yeah. He's not going to make 4 mistakes like Saquon admittedly did in a month, maybe 2 months, maybe 3 months. So that's one where, and by the way, Christian's hurt and obviously he's coming back and football moves quickly. But if you think that Saquon Barkley at his height is as good as Christian McCaffrey at his height, I can't help you. I mean, you don't have to be unrealistic. The guy's a great player. I don't want to. Christian McCaffrey is an historic player. I mean, just stop it. Stop. You don't have to be like this.
No comment. Brian Pumper checks in. Offense and defense played great, dominated the time of possession, won the turnover battle against a bad team. So why was the game close, J-Mac?
Why was the game close? Because the Eagles gave up a touchdown after giving up 36 yards and then immediately fumbled, and they gave up 2 terrible 2-point conversions. And actually, it could have been closer if it wasn't for Devontae Smith. Could have been even closer. And by the way, if Jalen Hurts throws that interception, and it was a very interceptable ball that they called originally, quickly overturned it because it was obvious that Cisco didn't catch it.
Yeah.
That's why it was close. They were coming off the rails, and that happens in football. Now, A.J. Brown just told me last week, and he's right from a logical standpoint. Momentum, to be honest, momentum's not real. It's not a real thing. But anybody who's watched football knows that it's got more to do with, you know, doubting and say, oh, God, what's going on here? But, you know, you got the goofy fumble, and then if there's an interception. But, yeah, the players played bad in the third quarter, going in early in the fourth until they self-corrected. So that's why. And as much we talk about, and I'm guilty of this too, Jacksonville's got good players. I say it all the time. Every NFL team has good players. So I think we all go in the game because they're struggling and saying they can't do this, they can't do that, they can't do that. But if you make enough mistakes and let them do some things, they can do some things because they're an NFL team.
Nothing on Sirianni.
There were some bad outcomes. How's that?
No bad decisions.
How many times? Literally, I do this
show. But there's 2.
Literally, I do this show, and I said I didn't agree with the 4th and inches decision. Evidently, that goes out one ear and out the other.
No, I just wanted you to admit it again.
4th and 3. I have no problem with. Again, the play was there as well, and if it would have worked, nobody else would have a problem with it. Tush push, I think it's laughable that these fans who crow how good they are at the tush push all of a sudden say, you can't do the tush push. Where the fuck were you before? You're judging outcomes. Outcome bias. It's not new. I've been screaming about it for years. It's not going to work. I realize that, but I'm not going to kowtow and acquiesce to people because they think outcomes equal decisions. It doesn't. I'm sorry. Anybody who has any level of degree or education in the fields of logic or statistics will explain this to you. I'm not going to tell you it doesn't exist. I'm not. You're judging outcomes. You're not judging decisions. That is literally, you should check how many times I've said that, Zander.
Got to be hundreds.
It's never going to work. It's never going to land, but it's never going to change because that's what you're doing. You don't even know what you're judging.
There's definitely still, I mean, there's some instances where you can judge both the decision and the outcome. I think there can be separate and you can judge both. Let's get to our commercial break, John. We'll get to Chris Franklin, the legend from NJ.com. Can't wait to talk to Chris. Our post-game edition here on Overreaction Monday. A lot of people in the chat, hit that like button. Everybody, appreciate you all being here. We'll take our commercial break and we'll be right back in 3 minutes with Chris Franklin on the other side.
If you missed any of today's show on the JAKIB Media channel, listen to the podcast on your way home. Available on YouTube, Apple, and Spotify.
He's blocked well and tries to cut through the middle. Oh!
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on Sports Grid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on Sports Grid. Score and save in southeastern PA and Delaware with Colony Pools this football season, and let the experts close your pool with a custom Merlin safety cover in green for the birds. And if you join our Winter Watch team, we'll give you another 20% off, and Colony Pools will handle it all. Keep your tiles on your pool, not in your pool. Fly with Colony right now, birds fans. Visit flywithcolony.com.
Hi everybody, my name's Jason Lombardi. I'm an inspector at DryTech. At DryTech we offer three major services, the first one being basement waterproofing. The second service we offer is foundation and structural repairs. And then the third service that we offer is mold remediation. If you feel you are having a waterproofing issue, give DryTech a call or check us out online.
Heading down the shore, have a ball once more.
Here, imaginations run wild and time stands still. Because here, you can find the best of the Jersey Shore, all on one 5-mile island. So leave the old you behind and get lost in the woods.
Wild, wild, wildwood.
Plan your stay in the Wildwoods today.
EAGLES, Eagles.
Welcome back in, everybody, to an Overreaction Monday edition of Birds 365 here on JAKIB Sports. Appreciate everybody being here. A lot of people watching this morning. Hit that like button, subscribe to the channel. Appreciate everybody watching. Joined now by Chris Franklin from NJ.com. Chris, you're looking crisp this morning. It's a nice sky behind you, the trees.
Yeah.
Your bald head looks good. Welcome to the show, man. Thanks for being here on this Monday morning.
Thank you very much. You know, it's days like this a little cooler than I'm used to. So it's days like this where I wish I still had hair many moons ago. But yeah, it's far
I'm
as
like
days
3 years from joining you guys on the bald wave.
Yeah, embrace it.
Embrace it,
Yeah,
embrace it, my
embrace it.
son. Let's get
I will embrace it, Chris, no doubt.
Yeah, that's the way to go. All right, Chris, let's start it. Everybody's upset at the head coach. Where are you as far as Nick Sirianni, the 2-point conversions, the lack of tush push success, the 4th and 3, leaving points on the board? Take the points, Chris Franklin. Where are you?
There's the first two-point conversions. I get it. As the train now comes by. Great. Sorry about this. It's the first two-point conversions I agree with, because you can go on there. You're at the ball at the 1 yard line because of the penalties. Why not go for it? You're so successful. The play calling on that once was so like the shove wasn't good on the first one. I may have thought like maybe doing a counter. We've seen them run counters off of that, or the way that Saquon was running, run a regular play. And I think you get like I'm on the backfield.
I don't
I
know
think
if
you
they
get
know
that.
how to run a regular play on 4th and 1 anymore.
It's crazy, but yes, like you had that. I don't know if Ben Van Sumeren's injury changed some of the stuff they took out
Yeah,
that
Ben got a
package.
concussion, yeah.
Yeah, that now I wonder that the 57-yard field goal. I know you trust your kicker, but that's the end. That's a lot of issues sometimes. Close to there. It's I think I
Yeah, I
probably would
got a
have done it.
problem. That's a tough decision right there. I mean, I trust Jake Elliott, but he hasn't been Jake Elliott this year. A
Yes,
little bit of he's been good, but I'm starting to worry a little bit about Jake. That's a difficult decision. I might have considered punting right there. That's, because Jacksonville's so bad. Are they, if you really pin them back, are they going to be able to go the distance? But I don't think fans would have liked that either. At the end of the day, though, I can't kill him for trusting Jake Elliott.
yeah, you can't. So Justin Tucker's not from that range. There's a story I'm sparking out tomorrow that you'll see like there that range from 50 yards. Justin Tucker's not doing is not
Yeah.
automatic on that too.
Yeah.
So it's a lot. There's a lot of kickers. It started out really well, and it's going to mess up the premise of my story. But yeah, it's going to you'll see it as a correction there.
Yeah, the weather turned. Michael Clay said that early in the season. The weather will turn and people will stop making all these big kicks.
Yeah.
And it wasn't terrible, but it was a little bit colder, as you mentioned yesterday. That was a tough decision. Now, for as well as Saquon's played, and he played tremendously, I was most impressed by he was beating himself up over what he did incorrectly. And one of the things he did incorrectly was he went down. He gave himself up. They had a first down. And I guess he lost track of because they were backed up. He thought he got the first down, went down, ball security, which would have been a great play, but he was 4 or 5 yards short, whatever it was. So there were a lot, for as well as everybody played, there were a lot of little things that you went, what is this? What's going on? Jalen Hurts, that 4th and 3. AJ was open, man. That play was there.
Yeah.
Late throw, little things. Otherwise, it would have been a blowout.
Yeah, and that's the mantra of this whole entire season. It feels like it's just we've heard things going like, okay, we're paying attention to details. We need to pay attention to details. Well, yeah, caves in, and the details. You think some of that stuff's been fixed, but there's still a lot of stuff that needs to be done. And it's to the point where this team, you could really mention if they had fixed the stuff, you could really mention this team up there with the Lions. I think, in my opinion, because the way that you've seen them, they're capable of playing. The talent that's on there, you could do that, but because they're shooting themselves in the foot so much, it's making you pause. Like, okay, well, now they're that second tier in the NFC, and that's the difference that we're going to see now. That's the difference between home field and a play. And it's going to be different between a home field and a playoff game. And this team going into Detroit, you got to have some questions about it if that's the case.
Well,
But
I have
Detroit's a different
anybody
animal.
going. I have questions about anybody going.
Yeah, it's a
Detroit.
tough place to play. It's loud. It's a tough place to play. So I look at that. The detail stuff. It's a matter of, okay, you can keep harping on it. You can keep teaching stuff. Now the onus is on the players to make sure that they continue. They fix the stuff and be more consistent.
Yeah,
we'll see what ends up happening. Chris, your overall thoughts on I know we got into it a little bit, but are you on the side that there's no issue with Nick Sirianni in yesterday's game? It was more about execution and stuff, or do you think this could be an issue for this team late in the year? Because I think that's where my mind goes to when you have tighter games versus better opponents. These things are going to matter more. And if you don't have a grip on making the right decision in the right moment, it could cost you. Where are you on that line of thinking?
I know I was going to say like I'm hedging my bets on both sides, but it really is both sides on this. It's on both sides. When you look at the decision making, you're waiting for you question some of those things, like especially late in the games. And we've seen it now. It's not the first game that we've seen. We saw the Atlanta Falcons game.
Right.
And so now you're at the point where you question some of those decisions. And if you're in a playoff game, tell you that was a better team yesterday. That's a loss. It really is because of a couple of things. I don't mind the aggressiveness. At times, it's got to be controlled aggressiveness. The way you do that, they pick your spots. You can be aggressive in certain spots. Just pick it. So, yeah, I don't know if he just thought he looked at the opponent and thought, "Oh, I can get away with this because the Jaguars or what have you," but you can't do that. The players, some of it's on the players too. If the coach is showing that he has got faith in you, even if you don't like the play call you want to have, you execute it. You got to find a way to execute that thing. You have this offensive line, like those fourth and shorts that this team's done so well with. Yesterday, you just got beat flat out by the Jaguars. You got to look inward like, oh, you got beat on the interior. You couldn't get a push at the point of attack, and now you turn the ball over downs. You're not getting 2-pointers and stuff like that. So, yeah,
By the way, and I brought that up, Chris, on the very week that everybody was so excited that Lane said, we were lobbying, let's run the football, let's be physical, let's bully everybody. And then Nick Sirianni says, hey, go bully everybody. And for some reason, the tush push didn't work. Like, I can't say that's a bad decision other than it's a bad outcome. So people don't like bad outcomes. They correlate that to bad decisions. Tush push. They're more successful this year coming into this game than last year, percentage-wise. Why wouldn't you go for it?
If you see in the way, if they're out leveraging you the way they were, that's what I'm looking like. Okay, the first time I'm like, okay, you win that one. The second time, after the second time, and they don't get it, it's like maybe we need to use one. I don't, and then you look at like, okay, I understand like you don't want to show some of your variations off of it because it's the Jaguars, an AFC, an interconference game instead of like one that counts a little bit more. So I get that, but still, after a while, you gotta trust. You can't rely on that too much. You gotta throw other things at them, other looks, because now it's getting to a point where teams know it. 31, 4th and 1. All right, yeah, we know it's coming. Okay, yeah, here we go. Just throw a wrinkle right with that.
Is this the end of the tush push?
No,
say?
I'm not ready
it's
to
too
say
early.
that.
It's too early. I think it's too early.
Let's pull the plug.
I don't know what the DJ's going to do at the link now. They can't push it real good after that happens. No, I can't do that. I push that, but no, it's not. I think it's still.
I love that DJ. He's right in my wheelhouse. All
actually yesterday,
old school hip hop. Not yeah. So they do a good job there. But yeah, I guess from the defensive perspective, I mean, they were so good till about 9 minutes left in the third quarter. I mean, this defense has been really impressive. And, Zach Bond's playing well. Nakobe Dean, essentially a walk-off interception. Cooper DeJean's the best fourth down player in the league. And then what happened?
I think they got lax. I think it was a youth thing where they got lax. They felt like, you know what, okay, we're up big. And then they were trying to move those zones around. They got pushed. They stopped talking to each other. Just like, okay, we can get by the rest of the game. That's why it looked like from up top. They let those zones go a little bit. They weren't talking as much, and you saw the gashes coming through, and they just getting 15, 20 yards a pop at will. And then you look at Tank. Tank just started running over. Like, okay, they started looking like, okay, we can fix this up.
Tank's a load, man.
Ooh, it's with that Jaguars team. You look at them like you can see the pieces there, but just they can't put it together. But anyway, you look at the defense, and you're like, what's going on? And it took the one thing I will say that we learned something from them is that they have the ability if things are down late, they have the ability to make a play because we saw it earlier in the season, we saw it last year when teams are driving. It's almost like well, let's see what the offense can do with like about 30 seconds left on the clock. Well, no, the Kobe Dean, that interception he made late, showed that he can make a play on a route that he's had trouble with so much. We
Yeah.
saw in practice. He
I
even
like
mentioned
the
himself.
idea from Doug. That's why I said, or press, or whoever you want to give credit for, Jack. I thought the idea was great.
Yeah.
Go steal a game, man. And that was just a shitty throw by Trevor Lawrence. But Jacoby, he made a great play on it, though.
Yeah.
He deserves
Yeah.
credit. But that was like overthrown, thrown to the inside. I don't know what Trevor was trying to do, but I like that's an example of I like that decision from Jacksonville. It didn't work out. That doesn't make it a bad decision if the players don't execute. Boy, I'm banging my head against the wall, Chris. My bald head. Nobody understands that. Nobody understands that. I thought that was a great decision to go try to win the game, steal the game right there. It's just poor execution by Jacksonville. Not that Nakobe couldn't have made. Who knows if there were a better throw? You know what it looks like, but yeah, I thought it was a good decision from Jacksonville. It just didn't work out. Look at it from the other perspective, and maybe people can understand it a little bit more.
I will counter for the people today. I did it for the people. Anywho, I'll counter this. You look at Press Taylor and the way that he played, and you look at the way the things he called, and there were a lot of questionable things, and it puts him to the point where they had to put on it. He got one right to the point where it's like, wow, Press got that call right.
Poor Press.
Yeah.
Press is not well liked in this town.
Because
he's not well liked in Jacksonville either.
He found the Philly special. He called it from a meaningless Week 18 Minnesota-Chicago game for people that don't know.
I don't mean to be too mean. And I apologize. The fact that he got to this level is impressive itself. But
By the
Philly
way,
always seems to get the bad brother. I'm sorry.
By the way, that story, which is a true story, but I think it's funny because they've been running that play in college and high school for years. I mean, but anyway,
single wings coming back, straight T's coming. See the fullbacks coming back. This league is cyclical, and everybody's going with the Fangio tooth this up. You see the fullbacks, so everybody's going to start getting running backs to fullbacks now, and then I'll be like, you know what?
Sumerin. I told Ben in the locker room this week, and I hope Ben's okay. He got a concussion, but I told him it's a little bit selfish of me, but I don't want to play in fullback because I think he could be a good linebacker. I really believe that. I really believe he's very instinctive. Now, Nakobe's playing so well, and Zach are playing so well that doesn't matter.
Yeah, Ben wants to get on the field, Johnny Mac. Ben, Ben's going to get to that next contract.
But I think he could be a really good linebacker.
I kind of agree. You can see the athleticism for sure when he's on the field. I mean, he's definitely got it for sure.
I think that's what I think the rise of Trot Jr. and what he can do. I think that makes it to the point where you need to start looking at playing fullback. Because
the Eagles are loaded at linebacker.
Oh gosh, I can't believe we're saying that right now.
Are we doing a throwback day where we're talking like the 90s now?
Yeah,
or 2000s.
What do you make of Zach Bond, Chris? I mean, the guy's been every time I look up at this TV screen, I feel like Zach Bond is making a damn play on. I mean, yesterday he had a play in coverage. He's covering, Evan Ingram in a great. He's tackling behind the line of scrimmage. He's tackling. I'm like, holy shit, this guy is everywhere right now, intercepting people. It was unbelievable watching him. What do you make of what he's done this year and what he did yesterday?
Now I look back. I think the last off the ball linebacker that they've had was 2006 with Trot. He's going to end it. I really do. He's leading the NFC in tackles right now among linebackers, off the ball linebackers, at least anyway. All linebackers actually. So I look at the way he's playing, the way his instinctiveness. I credit Vic in that front office to be able to pluck him out and say a special teams guy.
No, just give it Vic, man. The front office signed him to be an edge rusher. Don't give them credit. Give Vic credit. Give Vic. Well, think about it, Chris. It's like it's like New Orleans. Oh, he's an edge rusher. We'll play him here. Good special teams player. They don't see it. The Eagles, Howie's the one who said it. He's comparing him to Van Ginkel and how Bick used him. And then Bick gets here and looks at him and says, no, I'm going to play him an off-ball linebacker. I mean, you got to give Bick credit.
Yeah.
I give Bick all the credit.
I think Vic deserves a lot of credit on that. I think he deserves a lot of one. You look, and especially the way he utilized it, because now you look at his the way that he played at the edge. You can blitz him off of there. You can use him at the traditional linebacker, which he has experience with doing when he was at Wisconsin. So now you can drop him. He's got experience playing with space. He had the interceptions while he was at Wisconsin too. He turned that one for a touchdown. So it's not like it's like trying to pick off things foreign to him. You can play him in space. He's a sure tackler. And like, there's a couple times now where you see those tackling drills, like with ball, you didn't really have to me, you didn't have to really worry about that. But the fact he's in space, he can play in the flat, and you don't feel like, okay, you feel like 9 times out of 10 he's going to make that tackle. All right, cool. The fact you have that safety net now, you don't feel like you have 2 of the 3 levels. It's like, okay, you got a good defensive line secondary in the middle there. Now you feel like you could argue right now that linebacker spot is playing better than any of the other levels right now. So the fact they have that going, it just adds to so much versatility. You could add more packages now to what you can do with rush the quarterback. You could have confidence running your full scheme, which can really start to confuse some of these quarterbacks. Start coming up. You got Dak Prescott, who who thinks his team sucks. You got that coming up. You got some of the other teams like the Bears, sorry, not the Bears. Sorry, well, like the Panthers, who you don't know who the quarterback is. Like, there's so many teams you can look. You're like, huh. Okay, you can confuse them. You can you can rack up some wins just on your defense alone, which we didn't think about coming into the season. So there's a lot of things you can do right now with that.
Yeah. It's been impressive as a whole for defense, but there are things and that's where you want to be as a coach. There are things to nitpick. One, I would say, who's not playing well, and some people have brought it up, is CJ Gardner-Johnson. I was hoping what did Vic call it? The lollipop he got against Cincinnati would maybe give him, get him going a little bit. But boy, you talked about the communication issues. I was not loving what I saw from the safeties yesterday. I think they were the main culprits. Now I haven't rewatched the game yet. Did you get a feel for who the main culprits were, especially on those 2-point conversions?
It was
man?
late.
What were they doing?
It was late. It looked like they got caught up in, sometimes it looked like they got caught up in the run action or the threat of that. So they're trying to bail out on that, which in this system, safety plays a huge role in that run support. So I think they got caught up in there. I think they got their eyes were looking back towards that. I also think it was one of those things where they were I think the two him and Reed, when it got late and they started making runs, I think they were playing more off and more lax, trying not to get beat. So they let their guys run inside. They got turned the wrong way. And next thing you know, they're picking them up. They're picking them apart. So yeah, I think overall they didn't have their best game of the season. When you look at CJ as a whole, I think it's just one of those things where I don't know if you need to get him back more in the flow of playing near the line of scrimmage, because he seems a lot more comfortable and better doing that, as opposed to like just sitting back there and then trying to cut out the route. So I don't know if you just need to mix them up sometimes. Just say, hey, okay, get them that feel like that slot corner from time to time, just to get them involved and reading a little bit better. So it takes that back with them in the back. But yesterday wasn't one of his better games of the season.
Chris, maybe one of the biggest things from yesterday that we don't know yet about what the outcome is going to be, but A.J. Brown gets hurt. I mean, will this team be able to continue the streak? They're on a 4-game winning streak right now. Jalen Hurts, 4 games with no turnovers, and I think it's 5 games now with no interceptions. He's kind of dialed that in, almost overcorrected it in a big way, the whole turnover conversation. But boy, if A.J. Brown's out, we all seen how this offense responds when he's not out there. How big of a deal could that be if A.J.'s out for a couple weeks here?
Well, it's huge. I mean, I see Jordan Schultz say he's getting an MRI today, and they think he's going to be okay, which is like, all right, that's good. But yeah, if he misses a week, even 1 week, even down there in Dallas, it changes the whole dynamic, because we've seen teams are just going to overcorrect. You just go over to Devontae Smith's side, and you hope you have Dallas Goedert back, at least that he gets in there, so at least you have another weapon there. Because John Dodson, he had that really good catch. He's been he's been lost in this offense at times. You want to see him step up, and when he had an opportunity to step up, it really wasn't. He didn't do that much with the opportunity. He wasn't targeted. So, what he had wasn't targeted. Whatever his numbers showed that he hasn't done that much. It wasn't that productive. The ability for AJ Brown to garner all that attention in the back, it leads to so much stuff because you got to pick your poison. Are you going to stop AJ Brown? Okay, you got Saquon's going to go off, or you got Devontae, and you look at it now. They're going to have to rely more on that play action. If they don't rely on that play action, it's not hitting. You're going to be scratching out wins instead of making it a little bit more comfortable. Which, even though you look at yesterday's results, they should have been bigger. But yeah, it's all about the story.
And by the way, I saw Dallas walking out. Dallas and Dallas, that's the plan. Dallas Goddard. So hopefully he'll be back. And then
It is funny how much Calcaterra gets involved right now in the passing game. It feels like they didn't do that with Goddard, you know?
no, and maybe they found something. I thought one of the most positive points of that game was Jalen Hurts in the dump off game because typically he hasn't liked to do that, and he used Saquon and Grant sort of a little bit more in the dump off game. Then they got away from it late, but still, I thought that was a positive. I where are you on the Bryce Huff conspiracy? Barely played. I'm told when he did play, it was late, which, Nick mentioned a hand injury. But if he had a hand injury, as some people pointed out, well, why is he coming in late? As opposed to just trying to fight through it, then it would explain it better. Did they bench Bryce Huff right in front of our eyes, or are you buying the injury?
I'm not. I think I was the way I was looking at him practicing. Right, because like before the end, they had the guy with I guess like Matt Leo with the big arms, puffy arms, and they're doing a hand injuries, they're swatting, and they're trying out. I didn't see anything that happened there. I didn't look at it. I looked at it and was like, I didn't see it. And then the fact he didn't get in really till fourth, he was in there, was rushing. So the final was like, oh, here you go. He almost got a sack. He should have had a sack in that.
Yeah.
So I'm like, well, it's not there. What's going on? And this seemed to be the week of stories coming out around the league where guys were doing stuff in practice and what have you. And looking there, I didn't see anything that was Warren. Maybe missed me. I don't know. I don't think he did. So I'm wondering if they're trying to keep him healthy for something else on Tuesday. Probably don't deal like this. And I wish he did. He didn't talk. He wouldn't talk after practice, stuff like that. No, after the game yesterday. So that didn't help. I was like, hey, what's up? How you doing? And Nick had the hand injury. So maybe it was a cut. Maybe he had a paper cut on his hand injury. They can say, okay, that's the way he had injured his hand. Okay. But to throw him out there late, if he was really that injured, you're at the risk of hurting the player. Something weird is going on.
It is weird. And I can't imagine, everybody wants to run a rotational system up front on defense, and Bick's no different. He doesn't want to rely on 3 edge rushers. So even if you're benching Bryce Huff, that would mean Jalix Hunt's got to get involved.
Right.
And he wasn't involved. I can't figure that one out.
Chris, I said the same thing you just did last night, where I'm like, are they trying to shop this guy? And they didn't want him to get hurt, but 34 million dead cap hit this year, 29 million next year, and 22 the following year. Like they're tied into Bryce Huff. I don't think Howie's going to eat that type of dead cap hit to move off of him. I just don't. Now maybe they will, but seems very unlikely to me.
They only had 54 defensive snaps because Jacksonville was so egregious for so long.
6.
Josh Sweat had 42 of them. Brandon Graham 37.
And Bryce Huff had 6.
And Nolan Smith had 22. They had 37. Brandon Graham. Now the guy's awesome. We all know that the guy's in tremendous shape, but you can't keep doing that at his age.
The only thing I can think of, and this is like the only thing I can think of, is they were worried about Doug trying to test that edge with Tank, and then Huff not being able to contain, and they picking up a few yards that way. That's the only thing I can think of if you're going to give more run plays to Brandon, the BG, and then also to Nolan Smith. Because 6, even if you're trying to throw the ball as much as you think, okay, sneak them in on the third. They had him in third and longs a few times too. So why did that? There's more to the story that we know right now, and that's the fun thing with me and everybody else, really you, John, and everybody else. We're going to try to get out of them because
Yep.
it's weird. It really is
Yeah.
weird. I hope he talks this week.
Chris,
really
last
do.
question, man, before we let you go. We appreciate you joining today on an overreaction Monday. You don't want Nick Sirianni fired, do you, Chris?
Nah, you know what? And the thing is, I know it's not going. A lot of people are not going to like it. I think he's a good coach.
Yeah.
I think his
You
decision
think?
making. He's got everything except for
Yeah.
his decision making is questionable. I know you say, "Oh, well, that's what a coach does." He doesn't know decisions, but a lot of that stuff, you need to have a cohesive behind the scenes. You need to find ways to smooth things over. And we've seen the Ray Rhodes era where guys just like just yell and use the same words. We've heard that. You've seen the Chip Kelly era where he didn't know how to communicate with guys and anything. I think that goes a long way. And the fact that I think it goes a long way with him taking the blame for some stuff that he shouldn't be taking the blame for in terms of what a player does. Like, oh no, I put him in that thing.
Yeah.
But you see the guys
or
respond.
Kellen or Kellen or Vic.
Yeah. So I think it's one of those, I think a culture, an area, the organization on the fact that, hey, you know what? You feel the guys feel comfortable enough to be themselves around them. And the fact that they could feel looser around it instead of like the screws being tight on them, I think that goes a long way to his messaging at it. He needs to get better at decision making. There's no doubt about it. He does need to get this better with some of those decisions. But overall, I still think he's a good coach, and I think he still do that. So he should be it.
And overall, I think Chris Franklin is still the best at what he does. That's C. Franklin News.
Lies.
Make sure you follow Chris at NJ.com. If I'm Nick Sirianni, I said, Chris, I just point to the record. I point to the scoreboard. 40-19.
He did that before he got in trouble.
That's true.
Scoreboard.
Scoreboard.
Chris, thanks for
Scoreboard.
joining, man. We'll talk to you again soon. All right, brother. Great having you on.
Thanks, guys.
bud.
Have a good one now.
Thanks.
See you
Make
later.
sure you guys
See ya.
follow Chris at C. Franklin News. Read all his work at NJ.com. He does a tremendous job, and we appreciate him joining today. Johnny Mac, man, a good show today on Birds 365. As always, we always have good shows, but nothing like a Monday after a game. And, you know, when Nick Sirianni gives you a lot to talk about, John, they tend to be a little bit more fun. Maybe not for you, but for me, they are.
Well, I think people got used to the big blowouts with the Giants and the Bengals. Now you want 3 in a row of in this league where everything's close. And I think you might have another blowout next week in Dallas.
Yeah, if Cooper Rush is playing, friggin' definitely. That dude can't do much, John.
Yeah, maybe
I know any given Sunday.
Maybe even see Trey Lance. Who knows? And we'll
right,
see.
they do have him. That's right. Maybe they'll
play
play him.
well, that's not great either. But
I know, but I think he probably has more upside than Cooper Rush does. I mean, holy shit.
Yeah, well, he can do some off-schedule stuff at least. So who knows? We'll see as things develop during the week. But it certainly looks good on paper again for the Eagles, even though they're going on the road to a place they typically struggle mightily. And Dallas is telling the truth. He should be back. Dallas. Certainly that was the Eagles' thought process because they didn't put him. This would be the 4th game. So if they thought he was going to be out 4 games, they would have put him on injured reserve. They didn't. So I would say early trends are very positive to get Dallas Goedert back this week. Grant Calcaterra stepped up. So now you have maybe more of a 2 tight end threat look than you had in the past. And that would be helpful if A.J. Brown's got to miss a game. Maybe you go about it a little bit differently. And, you know, everybody's always thinking about the receivers. Maybe it's the 2 tight ends. So, but we'll see. Plenty of time to talk about that. Big win. Enjoy the win, by the way. That's the one thing, man. 10-1. That's what most miserable team in history. Most miserable fan.
Welcome to Philadelphia, John. We're miserable people.
I mean, you know, seriously. I mean, enjoy the win. These things aren't easy. And you're usually, again, I can't even imagine if that's a good throw in the Jags score. I can't even imagine what
Oh
this
my
day would be
God.
like. That's how close it is to go to teetering in a negative direction. Yeah, just enjoy enjoy the win. Enjoy the win.
Good stuff from Johnny Mac there. Appreciate everybody in the chat today. We're up to 177 likes, which is great. But man, we got almost 700 in here. We should have more than that. Appreciate everybody for being here. If you guys
I piss people off. I don't know what to
enjoyed
tell
the
you.
show, you got to hit that like button. Even if I pissed you off, which is likely. If John pissed you off, which is less likely, but
Which is
still likely.
very likely. Yes.
Hit that like button because it does help us grow. And we appreciate each and every one of you
Oh,
for being here.
breaking news. Not Eagles
Let's go.
news.
Let's go.
The New Orleans Saints have fired their head coach,
Oh,
Dennis
see.
Allen.
I wish we had Jeff Kerr on for that. He's the biggest.
Yeah.
Dennis
Oh,
Allen
yeah.
hater
It
in
should
the
have been
world.
Jeff. Yeah. He is a Dennis Allen fan.
Right now,
Dennis Allen
we're
truther.
thinking about Jeff Kerr as Dennis Allen gets fired here on Breaking News Monday on Birds 365. One more super chat we'll get to, John, that we didn't get to earlier. Big thanks to everybody, by the way. Tons of super chats today, and we appreciate you guys, man. Jacob Nation's been showing out for us, Johnny Mac, and we appreciate it. Philly Don, again, thank you, Philly Don. The one thing we're not talking about is penalties hurting us on offense again. It is true, John. We have gotten
penalties always hurt.
Yeah.
But and they had twice as many as Jacksonville. So yeah, that's not a positive. But
you put any of that on the head coach? Like, some people have that line of thinking where you have an undisciplined team, it's a reflection of the head coach. Where are you on that?
Yeah, I mean, if you're heavily penalized, but and I'll look, the Eagles haven't been near the bottom of the league in that. So, but yeah, I mean, for many years, the Raiders purposefully almost were the most penalized team in the NFL in a different era. But they tried to play that way in a more physical, violent way. And yeah, if you're getting a bunch of ball start penalties, if you're getting a bunch of pre-snap stuff, one of the things I think the Eagles have been poor at in the Sirianni era is the illegal man downfield stuff and the rub routes. Can't run rub routes, which is they've gotten better a little bit. But the illegal man downfield stuff, now that they've made it an emphasis, is now hurting everybody. So it's not just the Eagles anymore.
Yeah.
The Eagles were just kind of ahead of the curve because they ran so much RPO stuff. Look, when you run an RPO, the offensive lineman treat it like a run play. So it's really up to the quarterback to make the quick decision if he's going to throw the football to get it out on time. So again, that there's a lot of give and take on who's responsible for that kind of stuff. But when you do run a lot of RPOs, and Jeff Kerr just mentioned me spiking the football over Dennis Allen.
Oh yeah, well he can do that because he was on here ripping Dennis Allen.
But yeah, I mean that's just baked in. If you run a lot of RPOs, you're gonna in the NFL. It's not like college. You're gonna get some of those illegal man downfield penalties, just the way it is.
No doubt. Great show today, John. One more super chat real quick. Caleb says, I may be late. Any trade talks? Crosby, I don't think it's happening.
We haven't even gotten in the trade deadline because of this stupid game. But yeah, tomorrow's the trade deadline. Howie likes to do shit, so wouldn't surprise me. I don't think it's going to be anything splashy. I think it's more likely maybe that somebody leaves, not Bryce Huff, but
Definitely not Bryce Huff. We got another super chat about this too. Brandon Snyder, thank you, man. He says, a little late to the party there. Any serious trade possibilities you think? I don't know. I don't know how Howie's looking at this roster.
I think they want to get an edge rusher.
Do they?
Is disappointing.
Do they want to get an edge?
Well, I mean, look, played the guy 6 snaps.
I know, but they paid the money to him, and then you have to think about how he giving up.
I also think it's also about Brandon and how many snaps he's taken. It's also about Nolan. I know people were excited, but it's not a finished product. And it's also about Alex Hunt because he's and that's one of the issues we had with Alex Hunt. So I think a lot of people are, well, just play Alex Hunt. He's not ready. So, if you think you're a Super Bowl contender, And I think the Eagles have always thought that they need a more consistent pass rush. Now, I don't think that's Myles Garrett or Max Crosby. One guy I focused on was Josh Uche, but he's already gone.
Yeah,
So Darius Smith is the biggest name that would fit into all right, that guy can still play. He's 32. Cleveland's not going anywhere. It's a short-term fix, but he could help them.
Darius Smith, he's not on the move already, is he? Somebody just put in the chat he got traded.
Did he?
If
he got traded, I missed it, but he's a guy who they're looking to, move on. So, but if he got traded, I missed.
I don't know. I don't see anything official yet, but people are saying the Lions are interested in Darius Smith.
Oh, well, yeah, I'm sure the Lions. The Lions obviously lost Aiden Hutchinson, so that is logical speculation. And yeah, man, talking about an arms race if the Lions are closing in on Zadarius Smith. Howie might be on the phone right now.
Yeah, we'll see.
Yeah,
no doubt. We'll see what ends up happening there. One more super just came in, and we'll get to this before we get out of here. Sorry to keep you later, John. Brian Pumper says we need another running back. Kenny gain less as a momentum killer. Get me another starter.
I love Brian.
John, tell the people they're not going to invest more assets in
No. Kenny's a fine backup, but you don't want him. Look, you don't replace players. We've seen it with AJ Brown. Same thing with Saquon Barkley. It's not. You can't replace Saquon Barkley with another Saquon Barkley. Kenny Gainwell's a fine backup running back. There's no issues there, and Will Shipley's got some upside as well. So, but you got to cross your fingers that Saquon stays healthy. And that's why I think the Eagles should tone down the touches a little bit. But I know nobody agrees with that. But as some people pointed out, he was dealing with something yesterday, which is ironic because of how much production he had. But, people get banged up. I saw at the night game, last night while I was writing. After the game, whoever the sideline reporter was talking to Sam Darnold, said, looked like you were limping there. And Sam's like, nope, fine. Nobody wants a brain. No, you don't want to alert the opponent that you're dealing with something, but everybody's dealing with something.
Right, no doubt.
And Saquon's no different.
We got two more supers, John. The people don't want us to leave this morning. Brandon Snyder says, will Howie admit the failed Dotson move and look elsewhere, or will he just hope he figures it out by end of year? Yeah, they're not going for another
receiver. They're not bringing in another. They gave up a 3rd-round pick for yes, they got an extra pick back, but no. And by the way, he made a great catch yesterday. The 3rd receiver in this offense just isn't getting a lot of traffic. Now, if AJ's out again this time, hopefully he gets more involved. But they're not doubling down at wide receiver. No, absolutely not.
Brandon, big thanks, man. Thanks for the super chat. Appreciate your support. Brian Garner checks in. Do you think Nick not taking the points is hurting the kicking game?
Yeah, maybe. I mean, I can buy into that. You brought that up. I mean, yeah he doesn't even kick it off most of the time.
You talk about confidence all the time. You tell me how important that is, and I agree with you.
There could be something to that.
Yeah.
The guy's not doing anything all night and then go out and make a 57-yarder. And he almost did, but that close versus, maybe if he had a little bit more, batting practice swings, so to speak, maybe it would have helped him. Yeah, that's legitimate, I would think.
Last one, the best one for last. Philly Don says, congrats, no F-bomb today. Did we not have one F-bomb today?
Fuck, I forgot to throw see what I did there?
You took it right out of my mouth. That's where I was going, Johnny Mac.
Fuck,
fuck today because we got to get one in there. Did we miss? I don't think we – I couldn't.
I don't think I did.
I thought it was going to be filled with
I'm more disciplined today.
Yeah. John, the coaching excelled today, and John came out strong today with no F-bombs. Great stuff, everybody. Johnny Mac, great show today, my man. We will catch you tomorrow on Birds 365. Big thanks to everybody in the chat. Did we get up over 200 likes? We are. We're up to 206. Big thanks to everybody. Try and get me to 250. Can we? 250 in the last 2 minutes or in the last minute that the outro plays. Smash that like button on your way out. John, great show, man. Catch you tomorrow on Birds 365. All right, brother?
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everybody. Hit that like button. We'll catch you tomorrow. Make sure you tune in 2 to 6 today. Cilio's show is going to be a big one. See you then, everyone.
You've been listening to Birds 365, the destination for the passionate Eagles football fan who bleeds green. If it's Eagles football, we're talking about it. Debate inside the locker room and guests that are some of the greatest football minds from around the region. We hope you enjoyed the show. We know we had a blast. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll be back soon. But in the meantime, hook up with us on social media at JAKIB Sports. See you next time on Birds 365.